1535 was the summer of the royal progress. Billed as a belated honeymoon, the couple trying to convince all, not least themselves, that all was good in the marital bed. I can tell you, it was not. His Majesty was not visiting the Lady Anne's chamber often, and when he did, their violent exchanges could be heard throughout. Everyone knew, but no one dare say. The lady was vicious with all, belittling and chiding everyone, even those close. I was not close, so find myself regularly in receipt of her venom. I have broad shoulders. If the lady wanted to fulfil her role as queen and provide an heir, she'd have been better served putting her efforts into enticing the king back into her chamber. In fact, there were many ladies, her ladies, whom he had shown interest in. One of her less vocal ladies, the Seymour girl in particular, I think he was looking for a companion who would be less of a handful. The sparks that had once lit the flame of passion all those years ago were now burning out of control. She was neither blind nor stupid, and so enticed her husband with someone she felt she could control. She gave him her cousin, Madge. It was cunning, as the Shelton girl was much admired, pretty, and was of a pleasant nature. She was promised to Norris, yet he tarried, spending much time playing courtly love to the Queen. An inspired plan, blocking the Seymours without a doubt. Again, I had to admire the lady for her foresight. The progress was a huge success, parts of the realm seeing their sovereign for the first time, and the change of scenery was good for all. Well, mayhap not so good for the hosts, who would take many years to recoup the costs of such high-profile guests, with their entourage of thousands in tow. But then, you cannot put too high a price on good connections, can you? As far as the royal couple were concerned, something had clearly worked for them, and all did seem reconciled. There was another child on the way. We all prayed for a boy this time. Life at court is dangerous. You need sharp wits and eyes in the back of your head. 1536 would bring this home to many. The year started badly. We had barely finished the Yuletime celebrations when word came that the king's first wife, Queen Catherine, had died. The news was received oddly. No one at court was sure how to publicly react. Despite my being instrumental in the demise of her marriage, I had great respect for her. She had conducted herself regally, with great dignity, and had shown herself every bit the warrior. Were it not for her sex, she would have defied the heroes of history. The pregnant Lady Anne was jubilant and joyous one moment, but pensive and solemn the next. The thorn in her side had been removed, but the infection it left behind was now to be feared. Plans went ahead for jousting at Greenwich later that month. In hindsight, I would he had not taken part. His Majesty does nothing by half. His need to maintain his position as the manliest of men made him fiercely competitive. His favourites, to be fair though, did make him work for the victories. They did not just let him win. Make no mistake, this was a serious accident. His Majesty lay unconscious for hours and all thought him dead. In that short time the jackals were squabbling over the outcome. Who would take the reins? They ran round like chickens missing their heads. Being unmounted from his horse with such force thankfully precluded him from any further macho displays at the tilt. However, the butterfly effect of this incident was to prove catastrophic for many, me included. Upon hearing the news, the Lady Anne was so traumatised that within the week she miscarried the child. As it turned out, it was male, the longed-for heir and her saviour. This was to prove her downfall. The marriage was clearly in trouble. His Majesty stopped visiting his wife's chamber, all hope of an heir from her now gone. Instead, he was openly courting the outwardly timid Jane Seymour. The Lady Anne was in a constant state of anger and frustration. Not attractive. She directed her anger toward me, instructing her chaplains to preach against me, which got her almoner, John Skip, into hot water. She maintained the proceeds from the dissolution be used for education and charity, and not paid to the king. Not the best way to win him over. She had never been popular with her subjects, and her list of enemies had grown. She had clearly lost the king's favour, and so powerful families now rallied against her. She had grown desperate and had not checked her public rages. Her every word and action was relayed to His Majesty. 2nd of May, Anne Boleyn was arrested. On the 15th, she stood trial alongside her brother George, the other men having been found guilty 4 days earlier. The men were all executed on the 17th, the same day Cranmer declared her marriage to Henry invalid, which cost their daughter Elizabeth her legitimacy, much like her half-sister Mary 3 years earlier. Speaking of the Lady Mary, contrary to what you may think, she and I enjoyed a warm accord and corresponded regularly. She was all the more grateful to me when she would later be placed back in the line of succession. The Lady Anne maintained her innocence even in the face of a delay, and cruelly that must have given her hope. The woman sent to tender her in the Tower reported neither ill words nor admissions of guilt throughout her stay. She died with dignity, and I believe in disbelief that her end was nigh. Her death was a regrettable and avoidable act, but the tightening of laws in 1534 had left little room for a different outcome. The king immediately announced his betrothal to Jane Seymour, and 11 days later they were wed. With the Boleyn name in disgrace, her father's title as Lord Privy Seal was awarded to me, along with the elevation into the peerage as Baron Cromwell of Wimbledon. Look how far this low-born boy had journeyed.